You gotta laugh. You gotta have fun. Oh, before I introduce our guest today, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. If I don't acknowledge it, I don't remember it. Fobby Naghmi, the one, the only mentor, host of podcast Laugh, Lend, and Eat, which I've been a guest on.
Yes, you have.
Friend to not only myself, but many decades of experience helping individuals achieve their dream of home ownership, among other things.
Mm-hmm.
And a long time coming guest of the Culture Matters podcast, author of a book, and you have a guitar there.
I do.
A guitarist.
Yeah, musician.
How'd you learn?
Actually, was I just taught myself when I was like 11 years old. And then over the years, it's like God said to me, you can play any instrument you ever pick up. And so just any instrument that ever came in my hand. But God said one thing, Jay. He said, listen, by the way, you can play any instrument you want, but please, Fobby, don't sing. So I can get by singing vocally just because of years of playing on stage and everything, but it's never a comfortable moment when I have to sing.
What has playing music taught you about life?
Oh my God. So, I actually wrote an article for Christine Beckwith's magazine, The Vision magazine, leadership lessons from a bass player, because bass guitar was my main instrument, right? And so for me, being a bass guitarist, it's almost like being a linebacker in a football team. It's like if it's a run, then you got to rush towards the line, right? If it's a pass, then you got to help your DBs in the back, right? So you're always like moving around. The bass guitar is like the only instrument that controls both chordal and rhythm at the same time. Where the guitar is just a chordal instrument, drums are just basically a rhythm instrument. But the bass guitar, so it's like the ultimate instrument for a control freak like me, who wants total domination of everything that we do. So leadership lessons, really what I got out of it was, I'm always supporting other people. I don't need to be in the limelight. Because too often leaders, they want to be in the limelight. And I think good leadership is allowing other people to be in the limelight, you know what I mean? And supporting their goals and their visions and helping them accomplish those goals. The other thing is sometimes on stage, when I used to play live music, as a touring musician, I would absolutely be blown away by some of the musicians that I was playing with. Like some saxophone player would come on stage, I'm like, my God, I get to play with this guy. He's so freaking good. And sometimes I'm just blown away by my team members. That they're just this amazing people that have chosen to align themselves with me. And so there's a lot of lessons being a musician that you can pull in, we learn from whatever our roots are, and hopefully we bring them into whatever we do for a living.
How have you navigated the tension between having the limelight and wanting and desiring it for that mentee or that up and coming acolyte?
Yeah, I don't think I desire the limelight, so it wasn't really a balancing act for me.
What I mean in the context of position, because you've been positionally a leader for your just all your career, correct?
I would say since 2000, yeah. So about 22 years, 23 years. Yeah, it's a long time.
Enough to ask. Yeah. So because that's a powerful.
But I don't think leadership is really like. See, I think if you do leadership for the purpose of I want my name on the cover of the magazine, I want leadership because I want people to follow me or whatever. I don't think that was never my reason to be a leader, right? So most of the time, I think leadership happened to me, my first company that I opened, Horizon Mortgage, right? Summer of 2000, right? So I'm the owner, president of Horizon Mortgage. The way that came about, Jay, was I was an underwriter for this other company that had stopped paying us for like 60 days.
Wow.
Right? So I'm complaining to my best friend who was also my bookkeeper or tax preparer, whatever. Hey, I'm saying like, dude, they're not paying me, and I'm going through my savings, I'm going through my mutual funds, and this is, and blah, blah, and I mean, and he says, how about this, Fob? I'll never forget this. We're sitting on his back smoking a cigar, and he says, how about we open a mortgage company, I'll pay for it, and we'll just own it 50-50 together. And I said, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Wow.
And that was it. And we had like $75,000 that he put up, and we opened our mortgage company. And so it wasn't like I strove to be a leader, right? It was more out of necessity. Right now, over the years, have I honed in my leadership skills? Have I honed in things that I think are important as a leader that I should focus on and educate myself on to be a better leader? Absolutely. You know what I mean? And kind of like, you know, and not, you know, like when I first met you, Jay, and I remember hearing you like blew my mind away. Like there were so many lessons that I remember from hearing from, yeah. I mean, there's so many lessons that I was absorbing, you know, when you spoke at that Vision Summit back in, I think it was 2019 or 2020. I can't remember what year it was, right? But it was like, you take lessons from wherever you get it. And I think part of being a leader is I have the ability to get information and lessons from people, absorb them and bring them back to my team so that, because they were not able to be in Tampa, Florida that year.
What was it about you then that your friend said, this is somebody I could bet on?
Well, he's not here any longer, so I can't ask him that question, but I believe we'd been friends for years. He knew that I was a hard worker. He knew that I'd been a really good loan officer, right? He knew that there was, you know, I had been an underwriter for about 1.5 to 2 years at that point, right? So you put sales and underwriting together, now you have pretty much a guy that knows guidelines and can go sell, build. So I don't know what it was about me. I don't know if I think, you know, I wouldn't speculate on what he saw, right? But I guess it's our friendship and probably just maybe just wanted me to shut up. Like, stop complaining.
Yeah.
Shut up, Fab. Here's money. Go open a company and stop whining.
Did you aspire to be in this profession young, or were you pursuing music?
I was pursuing music. And that's a great story of itself, Jay. So in I was a bass player, traveling bass player for a few different artists in the DC area, you know what I mean? And you know, you get to travel all around the world and see different things, and it's always cool like that, right? It also gets old. So all the things that you hear about traveling musicians, that, you know, it is true, right? It's a job. And I remember it was 94. I had left the insurance industry. I had been selling insurance for 6 years unsuccessfully, right? Because my music career was just, but it was what it was. And then so in 94, my brother had a mortgage company. He says, can you, you know, we worked out a deal. So I started working over there, still playing music. Fast forward to 96, spring of 96. My daughter is about 1.5 years old. I come home, it's about 2:30 in the morning after a gig. I'm not playing the good gigs anymore, right? Because mortgage is kind of taking a front seat, marriage is taking a front seat, things are happening domestically, you know what I mean? And like that balancing act is not going as well as I thought it could. So I'm playing more local gigs, not traveling as much. I'm coming home at about 2:30 in the morning, and my wife is standing on top of the stairway in our townhouse. I'll never forget this as long as I live. And she said, this can't go on like this anymore. I said, what are you talking about? She says, you're coming home at 2:30 in the morning, probably made about $75 last night. You're going to wake up at 10 o'clock, go to the office, try to put in a good days of work. You know what I mean? It's just not fair to me and the kid anymore. So I remember going to my friend's office later that day, Darius, and I said to him, I said, dude, I got to give up playing bass guitar. But I said, if I'm going to quit playing music, I'm going to be the best damn mortgage person out there in this industry, and I'm going to kill it. And so literally that was my moment of, okay, if I'm sacrificing my music, then I want to be unstoppable in the mortgage industry.
How long did it take you to get your stride? For those listening to this that are in transition, like, this is an interesting time we're in, economically, culturally.
Yeah.
They're listening to this. They're in transition like you once were from music to mortgage. Like what's
I
your
was 2 years into the mortgage industry in the spring of '96. I wasn't 100% committed, right? Because I was still hoping that somehow or another my music career would take off. The spring of '96, I became 100% committed, right? And so literally, I think I was using, what's the right way to say this? I already had referrals coming in, I already had these leads coming in. So it wasn't like I was, like without business. But by the end of '97, I know this for a fact. By the end of '97, I mean, I was overweight because I was working so many hours a week, per day.
Mm.
And I was like absolutely just engaged fully 100% in the mortgage industry. There was like no other life that I saw. Like that was it. You know what I mean? And so I would say if I was a struggling loan officer today, I would like to put a 6-month plan together, because I think you give yourself 2 quarters to really see the fruits of what you're planting. I had a mentor that told me one time, you never go by weeks or months, you know what I mean? You go by quarters, because the quarters will tell you what the trajectory of a salesperson looks like.
What's it saying now?
It's been actually very amazing this last few weeks, man. I mean, we've been killing it. So let me explain to you what's going on. So yes, the rates are high, inventory is low, blah, 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 right? We all got the same drumbeat, got it. But in my position, my basic role, right, as a senior vice president of Homecomings Mortgage, right, is to grow the division. And I've never seen more opportunities to grow your mortgage division than we're currently in. Because it's easier for loan officers, they don't have a full pipeline right now. They don't have that, hey, Fob, I would love to look at this, but I'm so swamped. I just don't have time to talk. Hey, Fob, I would love to transition. I know where I'm at is not the best place, but I'm just so busy, Fob. That's what I was hearing for so many years. Now it's like, hey, you know what? Let's have a conversation and see if this really works for us. So, just to let you know, like in July, we added, I opened up 2 more branches in Florida, right? I'm thinking by the end of September, we should have 4 more branches. I'm hoping in Texas, a few more pop up in the Midwest. We're working on some different opportunities. So for me, this is like the moment I've been waiting for. The best part really is this, right? So you'll love this, right? You're a numbers guy. Is we're making these pro formas that are based on current volume, so they're really low. So now the ownership is saying, okay, we'll invest in that deal. Here's the good news. It's not going to get too much worse than what we're at. So the pro forma that I'm building, I know I got a 40% premium on there.
How helpful has been this brand that you built?
I think the brand itself is truly a godsend for me. We were able to partner up with Joe Panabianco at AnnieMac. So we're a division of him now.
Oh, wow. I didn't know.
Yeah. And so AnnieMac really owns, we're a company within a company. And so we have this really cool brand, Homecomings, which is a very small boutique type of mortgage company inside of a larger financially stable company. And so, while we can't just go ahead and willy-nilly just write a bunch of checks and hope Joe doesn't mind, right? But at the same time, there's conversations and discussions and directions that we all choose that, hey, this is going to work or not work. There's not that micromanagement that I had in the previously. And, look, and Joe, and also I cannot mention Gabe Gillen from Family First, where we started, where we originally Homecomings was where it was incubated with Family First out of Toms River, Jersey. But it was like, when you begin to understand 30 years this January, right? And at a certain point, it's not that companies are bad and people are bad. I don't believe people are genuinely bad. I believe that goals change, priorities change, things get realigned. If I don't take things personally and if I don't become offended by their decisions, then I can take it as they're doing the best for them and their family. And by having the homecomings, yeah. So homecomings, basically, we started it with Family First with Gabe Gillen in New Jersey, Toms River. And when the merger with AnyMac happened, so we moved over to AnyMac with Gabe, you know what I mean?
Was Chris Keelan there?
He was, yeah.
I spoke there with Jeff Loeb once, like years ago at an event they did.
Yeah. So Jeff,
what a small world.
Yeah, Jeff Loeb and I were literally just doing a LinkedIn Live webinar last week called "Stop the Insanity." So
that's what a small world. Wow, cool.
Yeah. So it's really good stuff. And I mean, look, that's the thing is like what I wanted to create, Jay, was I wanted to create a brand that, no offense to Joe or Gabe or anything, but tomorrow if they change some terms on me, or if they say, hey, Fob, we just can't support this anymore or whatever, you know what I mean? I keep the Homecomings brand. I keep the Homecomings website. My loan officers never change the email addresses. And we just find another engine to put inside the car. And it's just that simple now. And so it just made sense, for me to do it that way.
What type of response would you say you've gotten over the handful of years that you've positioned yourself in this way with the show, as an author, as a person of authority?
So it was interesting. Just yesterday, we were talking to somebody, and I'd never met this individual before. He's looking, he's got a nice little group out the Midwest, and so we're talking, and my podcast comes up, Laugh, Learn, and Eat. He goes, "Oh my God, you're the host of Laugh, Learn, and Eat?" I go, "Yeah." So it's interesting how I didn't realize like the reach that our podcast has, and how people are listening to it. And, so once again, Jay, I think this is just my life story, is half the time I don't realize what I'm doing. I'm just doing it because I get an idea and I execute it. Right. And then I later, like when I wrote the book, right, I didn't even realize, like, falling forward, like the accomplishment that was to write a book. And I really mean that, like, I just didn't realize it until the outpouring started coming in. And I had to kind of stop and say, did I just do something unusual? And so it was like one of those moments, like realizing, okay, you know what? We did something amazing, to be able to finish a book and then release it, right? Have it edited, all that stuff, right? And then go and talk about it. So I don't realize half the stuff that I'm doing. I'm just doing it. And there's no like premeditated thought of X, Y, and Z will occur once I do this. So maybe I live too much in the moment, but that's really the best place for me to stay.
Why?
Because I don't really think about the long term. People are always thinking, what'll happen after this, you know what I mean? And I'm just so focused on doing this today. Like I'm with Jay Doran today, right now I'm with Jay Doran. Nothing else matters on this Saturday.
Thanks. Where does this philosophy come from?
Where did the philosophy come from? I guess years of pain, really, huh? Because when think about this, like when I'm so fixated on what will this book do for me? You know what I mean? Like when this book comes out, then this will happen. When this book comes out, then that'll happen, right? And then I'll go on a speaking circuit, and then I'll do this and I'll do that, right? And then the book comes out, and also, 800 people buy it, and that's about it, right? So
been there.
Yeah, it's not that the 800 people are wrong for buying the book, right? It's just that 799 of them were my friends. And I'm minimizing my success on the book, and I don't mean to, but what I'm getting at is there was no like game plan, like when the book comes out, this will happen. When the podcast goes out, this will happen. When I become a leader, this will happen. These all happen because at that particular moment, it's a decision that I made. Now, here's one thing that differentiates me between other people. And this really is critical for anybody listening. I'm one of those 2% of the people in the planet that will execute an idea that I get. And that's just the main difference between anything that I've done in my career versus anything that anybody else hasn't done.
Mm.
And you know this, Jay, when we speak to people, you know, we are giving them everything we have. And then you see the same person a year later, and you're like, so how did it do? Oh, dude, you know, my wife happened, and then we had this, and then the AC broke down. I was like, the ideas we were talking about had nothing to do with your wife or your air conditioner. But yet life happens and people get distracted by them. And John Perry, my business partner, he said to me something. He was like hanging out here in DC with me one day at the office. And he says, you know, it's amazing. In 2 hours, you do more than most people will do in 10 hours. Because in that 2 hours, I'm just in that moment, and whatever's in front of me will get accomplished. And I don't know how I got that way, but over the years, it just kind of developed.
Had you not been that way, where do you think you'd be?
Probably happier. It does take a lot of intensity and focus, right? To maintain that, right? A lot of it came from discovering Buddhism for me, right? I think so. If I hadn't discovered Buddhism, where would I be, right? I think that's where it really is more relevant question. I think I would always be wanting more and desiring more, and just not being satisfied. And I think that leaves that unfulfilled. In Buddhism philosophy, there's a cartoon, I forgot the name, I can't think right now, of this creature that has this really, really big head, Jay, and a skinny neck and a big belly. And that describes our appetite, right? Like we're just never going to have enough, even though our neck is so skinny, can't even eat more than, you know what I mean? But we just want everything. And then in the Pakistani culture, wow, we'll say something like, you know, I'm full, but I'm still hungry, which means that, you know, like I shouldn't be eating anymore, but I know my desire to eat still exists. And so that's a human nature, and that's a flaw in all of us. I can't tell you how many times I've been eating food, Jay, and I'll say, yeah, you know, but what if this piece of meat had a little bit of barbecue sauce on it? So I'll continue eating, I'll go get the barbecue. Now I'm full, right? But I'm just eating for the taste. And when you take that into life, you know what I mean? Like you're building wealth, even though you don't need to build wealth anymore. Now, wealth will accumulate whether you want it or not, but I don't like to play the zero-sum game anymore. I feel like Jay and Fobby can win together. Jay doesn't need to lose in order for Fobby to win. And that's a flip in the philosophy.
It wasn't always that way.
No, it could just, we're always raised, or at least I was, you know what I mean? To Jay has to lose in order for me to win. And you know, years ago, I just learned that no, it doesn't have to be that way. We can all win together, and we could all lose together also, you know what I mean? But the goal is that we all win together. And maybe my winnings aren't as large as my appetite would like them to be, but they're enough to keep me content.
Why did you start the show?
So you were actually part of that.
Me?
Yeah, you were there. In Tampa, you had just spoken. You talked about having a car wreck. I still remember the talk, right? That you were videotaping yourself during the car accident.
True.
Right? Something about your arm dangling, right?
Yeah, I was permanently paralyzed.
Yeah, right? So I listened to your entire talk. I walk outside and Jason Frazier and Josh Pitts like, hey, Fob, can we interview you? I'm like, yeah, but I'm like kind of dazed right now. And I talked about you during the interview. I said, I don't know if I want to hug him or run from him.
I'm used to that. I'll tell you, damn Skippy.
And so Jason Frazier is like, hey, Fob, I saw you were doing a webinar or something. And I go, yeah, Jason, but you know what? I love to do what you guys are doing, which is this podcast stuff. I said, I just heard Jay talk about it. I said, he goes, Fob, all you do is you strip the audio from your webinars and you dump them, and that becomes your podcast. I said, is that simple? So the reason I wanted to do the podcast was I want to stay relevant in the mortgage industry. Because too often guys in my age bracket, 50 plus, we kind of take this back seat, you know what I mean? And we start playing golf and smoking cigars and, talking about the way business was so good back in the 90s or whatever, right? And I was like, dude, I just can't do that. Like, I gotta be on the forefront. So part of Life, Let and Eat, believe it or not, we have this one segment with Madison Keenan. And her nickname is Madness. So we call it Life, Let and Eat with Madness. And she's 27 years old. So she comes on and she'll bring on her 20-something friends. And you're hearing from the 20-something what's going on in the mortgage and the real estate industry. So I just love that because, I'm looking at that with my 30 years of experience and I can see where they're making mistakes and I can see where they're doing different things that they're just like, they're doing Zoom calls to take loan apps. I'm like, dude, I wish I could have done Zoom calls instead of waiting for some guy to show up at 7:45 at night. I'd have loved to just sit in my bedroom and do a Zoom call. So it's just, I love that. And so there's a part of me that it feeds.
What would you give advice to those that are seeking to start a show that are apprehensive, concerned, afraid?
Afraid of what?
Is that what you're asking them?
Yeah, I mean, because if I give you an answer, I don't want to just say, oh, well, just do this. Well, okay, but tell me what the fear is. Like, are you afraid that, you're going to get shocked by some electrical microphone? I mean, because that's happened, you know what I mean?
Well, what were you thinking you're saying that you heard something I had said and had been said around the value of putting yourself out there in that way. Did you, in that moment, did you have apprehension? Because I'm thinking maybe someone listening to this, like, what maybe I
don't think I'm the right guy to ask about apprehension because very few things I'm apprehensive about.
What do you mean?
Like, to me, if I'm afraid of something, I'm going to go do it.
Really?
Now, I'm not going to go parachute. I'm not going to do bungee jumping. I'm just not going to do that, right? That's silly. For me, right? Somebody else might do it, right? But if it's a matter of being apprehensive about starting a podcast, right? And I'm afraid to do it, I'll do it. Like if I'm afraid to make videos, we can both talk about videos, right?
Yeah.
People are always afraid to make videos. Oh my God, I don't have the right lighting or I don't have this, you know what I mean? I'm like, dude, I walk my dog in the morning, literally. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but check LinkedIn out on Mondays, right?
Okay.
I literally have my phone like this. I'm walking my dog and I do what's called the Monday little nuggets or something. And there's no lighting, there's no selfie stick, there's no cameraman around me. It's just me and my dog walking through the trails and I'm saying, you know what's on my mind today? I'm thinking about the zero-sum game, or I'm thinking about interest rates being so high and everyone's free, whatever it is, right? You can't let your fear hold you back. I love this saying, Jay. I love it so much. I wish I had said it, but I didn't. Everything I've ever wanted, everything in life has been on the other side of my fear. There's nothing that I ever really desired that was within this side of fear. It was always on the other side of fear. Down to asking my wife to marry her. A lot of fear there, right? Like, what if she says no? You know what I mean? What if she doesn't want to spend the rest of her life with me? So everything in life is fearful. We just have to identify the fear. What is it? Like, so to me, it's like if someone's apprehensive, what are you apprehensive about? And that's where the conversation begins.
What have you learned from your show?
Oh my God, Jay, Jesus, it's so much. I mean, we're over 100 some episodes, right? So
wow.
Fourth season, finishing up the fourth season right now. We got about 2 more months of recordings to do. I mean, just it's like I couldn't even tell you. Like Carl White was on the show a few months ago, right?
Yeah,
it just blew my mind, man. I mean, listen to this fact. Carl says to me on the show, right, that for all these years he's been calling. You know Carl White, right? Mortgage Marketing Animals.
Yeah.
right? Huge guy, right? And he says, Fob, I've had a 16% pull through for all my years as a mortgage professional, right? No matter what year's been, Fobby, I get 16%. And I said, stop, Carl, stop. Are you telling us that 16% of the people you speak to say yes? He goes, yeah. I go, but I just need everyone to understand what just happened here. Carl White is being told 84% of the time no. Dude, how do you get that? I mean, I would have got that lesson if I wasn't interviewing Carl White. Right? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I will then just build off of. And once again, I get excited about it. I want to go write a whole article about it. I want to go do I'm going to turn that into a sales thing. I'm going to teach my loan officers. This is how you do it. And so, yes, there is so much I've learned about on this show that it's endless. It's endless.
Do you think you'll continue doing it?
I don't see myself stopping. I think it is maturing as a show over the years. It continues developing. We now have a producer. We have a co-host, Madison. We have a Spanish-speaking version coming out for the Spanish audience with Vince Caicedo in Jacksonville, Florida. We have people who now do the editing for the short clips out of it for me. So, it's developed into this kind of a own little brand. So it's nice to just be able to come into the studio, turn the lights on, turn the microphone on, and kind of rip it.
It looks great.
Yeah. So, to me, I don't see me slowing down or saying I don't want to do this. I will say this past year has been a struggle, only because we've been so busy on the mortgage side of building and recruiting and developing that I've been kind of distracted. And so it's been nice to have the other shows pitch in and pick up the slack where I didn't need to be there.
Do you know producers that are actually producing right now?
Loan officers?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What are their word tracks?
Say that again?
Like, if you were to describe how they're showing up, how they're speaking.
So here's the
what
thing.
they're thinking.
Everybody's concerned, Jay. In other words, a few years ago, if you were doing 20 units a month, maybe you're doing 8 units a month today. You know what I mean? Or you're doing 12 units a month, right? There's no doubt about it that the volume has come down. And it was interesting, just 2 days ago, we did a mortgage leadership roundtable discussion here on the podcast. So I had Gabe Gillen from AnnieMac, I had Keith Cantor from First Community Mortgage, I had Karina Carter from CMS Mortgage. And so we're all talking, and really my takeaway was the challenge of this industry is not going to go away anytime soon. People are predicting, the rates will drop, and maybe they will. That's not my cup of tea. You and I both know Barry, and Barry can make that prediction for us, right? What I do know is the inventory magically will not go from 600,000 to 1.4 million in like 1 month. So we know we're looking at 24 to 36 months. So what the good producers are doing, what the good leaders are doing, is we're adapting. It's just like, if you go back and think about this, survival of the fittest, right? There's nothing more. It's pure basic survival of the fittest. Like, who's going to survive? Did you adapt? Did you leave the swimming pool for the land? Did you learn to climb a tree to survive so that you wouldn't get eaten on the ground? Did you, decide to go to the highest limb so that, so these are all survival techniques. And so the companies that are surviving, the loan officers that are surviving, they're adapting to the new environment, right? Now, here's a funny thing, Jay. Everybody's seeing this now. Loan officers who are getting in the last 12 to 18 months, some of them are actually doing better than the veterans.
Oh, yeah? You see that?
Because they don't have that experience of a 2.5% rate. Right? So they're literally going out every day. They don't know any better. So they're saying, okay, Fobby said to call 10 realtors a day. Fobby said I need to do 4 coffee appointments per week. Fobby, boom, boom, boom. And they're following the method. And if you follow the process works. it's the lack of execution that we come back to. It's the excuses. It's the rates are too high. My realtors don't have any inventory, blah, blah, blah. I asked this one guy, I said, look, Jacksonville, Florida had 5,000 homes for sale, I think, in the month of May. 1.3 million population, right? So I asked this loan officer who was like down in like, oh my God, I can't believe how bad this market. I said, how many loans would you love to close a month? Give me a number. I said, it's 6. I said, okay. So if you have 5,000 units, 6 is just a drop of the bucket. So stop focusing on that you had 14,000 before. All you got to worry about is your number 6. And so when we flip the script, when we begin to see the other side of the script, then all of a sudden the excuses do go away.
What are you most excited about for 2024?
You know, living in the moment, it's hard to get excited about 2024, right, Jay? Right now, I'm excited that you're I'm on a call with you right now. That's I mean, I haven't really looked.
It's so interesting how like our philosophies shape us, because it's a question that I'm always curious about with others, but it makes sense within the framework of what you've articulated. That may not be a question that comes through
I think the better question is, Fab, are you planning 2024? And absolutely, I'm planning 2024, right? I don't know if just ask me if I'm excited about 2024 is the accurate question, because, you know, when 2024 ends.
Well, I am, but you might not be, because you have a different philosophy.
Right.
Like, that's why it was very psychologically interesting, right? Because I'm used to asking that question. But you're not thinking in those terms. So yeah, it's less useful of a question.
So to me, I think it's more about this is what are you excited about? I mean, you said you're excited about 2024. So what are you excited about?
Yeah, well, I'm excited about death.
You're excited about death?
Yeah.
So in 2024, people die?
I'm just now you're getting me with a syllogism. Yeah. This, then this, right?
I want to go down that rabbit hole, man.
Yeah. That'll have to be our.
You know what's so interesting? When Buddha was dying, supposedly, right? I wasn't there.
I would
right?
like to understand what happened.
One of his followers says, "You never taught us how to get to heaven."
And
Buddha's response is supposedly, right, that was never my job. My job was to try to teach you how to live in the planet.
Beautiful.
And so when you really begin to see life in that context, right, then 2024 doesn't matter. It's like right now, I'm in the moment with Jay Doran, dude. I mean, this is like an amazing moment. Like, why would I be focused on like March 2024 and not see you right now? That's what we do.
Is there a lesson in that? Is there some level of both, and in what order in that body of work? I'm not as familiar with the East as I am with the West, although I don't feel the more familiar I get with the West, the least familiar I feel. But
I think look, you can plan for the future, right? You just can't plan the results. So why do people get excited? Let's talk about let's unfold this for a second.
Yeah.
Why does somebody get excited about the future? Right? For me, it comes down to they have hope that 2024 will somehow be better than 2023. And so when we go on that assumption, now we're saying 2023 is bad.
Implicitly.
But I can't say 2023 is bad, because on August 5th, 2023, I'm with Jay Doran. So why would 2023 be bad? How long have you and I talked about doing a podcast together? And so that happened in 2023.
What about if you were with somebody you dislike deeply?
So I probably wouldn't be with somebody that I dislike deeply.
How do you navigate that? Like, what would be your advice to the non-Buddhists?
I mean, it's how do I don't know how to tell you. I just avoid, not avoid. I try to be as honest as possible with people, right? And what I've learned over the years is my honesty will attract the people that I want to be with and detract the people that I don't want to be with. And I've always said this, Jay, People who work with me sometimes really cringe when I say this, but it's the absolute truth. If we lose a deal, if we lose a group of mortgage loan officers, if we lose a loan because we were honest, I will still sleep that night perfectly. Because there's no point of being dishonest and winning and then regretting what you said later on. So what I learned is people who are just not attracted to that level of honesty, they tend to stay away from me.
And why is it worth it?
Because ultimately, there's only so much you can put inside your stomach. And I'm using that as a metaphor of financial stability, right? I mean, I remember at the peak of Horizon Mortgage, I mean, back in those years, we were making so much crazy money, Jay. I mean, it was just like this waterfall of money, right? And I remember this one loan officer of mine compared me to this other owner of another mortgage company saying, well, that guy's got this office and that guy's got this car. And I said to him, I said, yeah, I get all that. And I hadn't really explored the Buddhist philosophy at that time, right? Like I do today. But I said, is his steak any better than the steak we're eating right now? I mean, we were at the Palm restaurant enjoying a nice steak, you know what I mean? Okay, maybe it's a little bit better. Maybe ours is 8.5 and his is 9.5. I don't know. I mean, is his pillow any better? Is his mattress any better? Because ultimately, that's what it's got to come down to is like, can I sleep at night? Can I wake up in the morning and not be stricken with fear and paranoia, all sorts of things that ill-gotten money sometimes you have to live with.
Mm.
So I don't know, man. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but at the end of the day, I tend to, what's the right way? It's not that I downplay money. So please don't ever mistake that. I work very hard for the amount of money that we make, and I'm not ashamed of making money. I enjoy making money. Everything that I know is you know, I mean, people say, oh, well, money's not important, compensate. I said, bullshit. You know, like if money's not important, you know, you can go get a job at McDonald's at $7 an hour. And if you whistle, they'll give you $7.50 an hour. You know what I mean? So money is important because you're trying to get a better opportunity in life. You're trying to create opportunities. So we're not going to downplay money in the role it has in our life. That's just the way it is. But how much money do I really need? Is it worth my honesty and my character? Not today, it's not.
What number would you put on? try to get you.
Yeah, no, I don't know
like
what number it would be.
Politician training.
Listen, I mean,
what's the number?
I don't know if there is. I mean, is
good
it
answer? That's all you have to say.
Is it $1 billion? And then, so once again, my follow-up question is, okay, so if you give me $1 billion, what part of my character do you want to assassinate? You know, and then I got to look at it, right? Because I can't just say, yeah, for $1 billion, I'll lie to Jay Doran and you know what I mean? Like, maybe I can live with that. Maybe, you know, I cash the $1 billion, I call you up, hey, Jay, I lied to you. I'm so sorry, but I did it for $1 billion. Here's $100 million to calm you down. Right? Or is it to tell a lie to somebody, right? Because this was done to me, right? That screws up your entire family and your children and the way you live. No, I couldn't do that, right? So it just depends.
What role does culture play in your philosophy of business?
I mean, you know, Jay, that's the coolest thing about your show, right? It's called Culture Matters, right? The only thing I would change in your right is I would just tell you culture is everything. It's not just matters. I mean, it's like it's everything, dude. It's like there's nothing, you know what I mean? So how do you get to culture, right? How do you develop a culture, right? So as a leader, right? So we go back to leadership. We have to unpeel what are our core values, right? We have to really dig deep. And sometimes, you know, people, you've seen the normal stuff, right? I love this one. Jay, like, just humor me for a second. People say to me stuff like, well, we're a big family. You know, I spend 10 hours away and I want this to be a family here. And I'm like, well, hold on now. What if I come from a dysfunctional family? Why do I want to come to work for a dysfunctional family? So, sometimes we have to be careful about these catch words that we use. So we have to understand what our core values are at first, right? And identify them. You take those core values as a leader, and that begins to shape your brand, right? So now we get into that branding of our company, right? And from the brand, and people, this is where I think people make the mistake. People think the brand is consumer facing. Like, okay, so people see the word homecomings, they see the logo, they feel good about the corporate blue, and they feel nice and vibrant with the orange. That's the corporate consumer facing side, right? But the other side of brand is the interior facing, which is what is the team seeing? How do we represent the core values and the brand to our team? And that's where culture comes in. So if we created a culture where it's okay to lie, where it's okay to cheat, where everyone is playing a zero-sum game to win and compete and do this, right? Then that's the culture that preempts everything. Versus if I'm creating a culture where I'm saying, look, dude, I know you had a bad month. You know what I mean? What happened? I want to know. Let's peel back that onion and say, okay, you only did 2 loans. Why did you only do 2 loans? Is it something the company did wrong? Could you have done, oh no, Fab, what happened is I lost, these 4 units because blah, 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 blah. Got it. Isn't that a better culture to create? To understand what's going on in someone's lives and then support them so they can get back up off their feet instead of kicking when they're down. But that comes from core values. That comes from understanding our core values and representing them. And so that's where culture for me is really like coming from, is dripping through the brand.
Where does it become a fault or a burden?
Yeah, I think when we begin, Keith Cantor actually said this. I'm not saying this anything originally, but he really did a really good job of verbalizing it. You know what I mean? Is when we begin to focus so much on being the good guy that we overlook the numbers too often. So if I am saying, hey, you only closed 2 loans, let's pick you up. But I'm saying that, 2-3 months in a row, we go back to the quarterly, right? Now I got to say, look, dude, part of our culture is performance-based. You didn't tell me what we did wrong as a company. I've given you the tools to get your numbers up. Your lack of execution is now, coming to the forefront. And now we have a performance issue. So there is that balancing act, right? Where part of our culture is performance-based. Part of our culture is accountability. If you're going to hold me accountable, then I need to be able to hold you accountable.
How would you recommend going about doing that?
Communication is vital, right? I think any relationship, whether it's with your wife, your children, your employees, your team members, whatever it is, if you're not communicating on a regular basis, then people are forced to read my mind, right? But so that's why you have weekly meetings. That's why, I don't think 48 hours will go by without me touching one of my managers. So there's like this rotation that I have in my head, right? Did I talk to Brian today? Did I talk to Trevor today? You know what I mean? So I'm always rotating in my head. Like I want to have a conversation, nothing more. Hey, how's it going? You know what I mean? How's Chicago? You know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. What's going on down there? Are you guys doing okay? Whatever, just touching base. But that way, that conversation, it's kind of like lifting weights, right? Jay, you lift weights. So you can't go in and just bench 235 pounds on day one. You start off with maybe the barbell, it's 45 pounds. You start with that. Then you add a couple of 10s, you add a couple of 25s, and you build up. Next thing you know, you're doing 235. And communication is no different. So if I'm only communicating when things go bad, Jay, what were you thinking? I can't believe this. But I don't talk to you ever until then. Then what do you think of me as a leader? That guy only brings me bad news.
How do you help a leader notice that behavior in themselves?
Yeah, I think it's creating the awareness within the leader that if there's a lack of communication between them and their team, it's the leader's fault. Too often I hear leaders talking about, man, I wish that we could do this, or man, I wish we could do that, right? And then you look at them and say, did you tell your team that you wish that? Oh, I can't say that. Why not? Why can't you tell them your wishes? When the guy comes to you and says, hey, Fob, I need an advance. He's telling me his wish. Right? Now, I can either fulfill the wish or I can say, sorry, our policy doesn't allow the advances, on unfunded loans. Either or. So why can't I tell my sales team my wishes? That my wish is that every loan officer close at least 3 units a month in the third quarter. Bum, bum. Let's figure that out.
How'd you learn this?
Music. On stage, we're always talking. People don't know this. Musicians are constantly talking to each other on stage.
Really?
Yeah, just like a sports team. We're always talking. The bass and the drummer are talking, whether it's through our eyes, whether it's through our hand gestures. We're always looking at each other. We're always like that, especially doing jazz improv, which is what I played mostly, blues and jazz improv, right? Sometimes the sheet music is just that. It's just a sheet of notes, right? But me and the drummer may be taking a song that's got a samba beat, right? And we're going to slow it down a bit. Now, if I don't communicate to the drummer, or if you don't communicate to me, that's going to sound like a train wreck to you in the audience.
Wow.
Right? So we're always communicating, whether it's through our eyes, whether it's through verbal, whether it's through body language. You've been to concerts, right? I'm sure, right? You've seen some shows.
Yeah.
The musicians interacting and their body language and what's going on, and they're making eye contact. It's communication. And so it was easy for me to take that communication that I learned on stage and bring it into the mortgage industry when I became a leader. Like, okay, if you're going to work for me, then we're going to communicate on a regular basis. And when you need that, adjustment, I'll make sure the adjustment, about it.
Do you still play?
I do, yeah.
And how do you balance the two?
I mean, I can't play live. I mean, I think the last live show I did was like maybe 2018, 2017. I mean, and just to put that in context, like it was a 35-minute show and it takes like 4 months to prepare for it.
Wow.
So it just, it's one of those things, like just that amount of energy needed to really put on a good show is it just takes, once again, I'm not going to half-ass anything. So I'm going to make sure that it's absolutely the best the audience is going to hear that night.
What did you learn about yourself writing your book?
Well, you jumped around real quick on that one.
Damn.
What's your favorite color? What do you like to eat?
Yeah. What do you think of the show so far?
Right. What are you most happy about 2024?
What's your social security number?
Look, it was really interesting. When I finished writing the book, Candy Zolkowski, I think, right? Candy, she was the editor. I called her up and I said, Candy, it's weird. I'm looking at the writing, and it took me like 2.5 years to write the book, right? I said, the style of my writing changed from the time that I started to the time I ended. And she says, yeah, that happens often with authors. You know what I mean? That the style of writing will change. And so obviously I opened that up in my head, because just like you, I like to think, and I mean, once I make a statement, like, okay, so that means that I'm constantly changing, right? I was unaware that I was constantly changing. And so for me, like the biggest takeaway was that, like there is nothing permanent. Like we want to hold on to, like, sometimes I feel like Daffy Duck with that diamond, you know what I mean, in the mind with Bugs Bunny, where it's like he's got this huge diamond. I don't know if it might the generation gap here between us, right? A lot of us who grew up on Bugs Bunny, right? There was this duck named Daffy Duck, and Daffy was like his what's that word? Like Adams and Jefferson were.
Like accomplice?
Not accomplice, but his opposite.
Oh, shadow?
Right? Antithesis.
Yeah, antithesis.
Something like that, right? So
antagonist.
Daffy was Bugs' antagonist, or Bugs was his antagonist, really. So anyway, Daffy had this huge diamond, right? That was 3 times the size of Daffy Duck. And he's always saying is mine, 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 all mine. And he's running away. So, and next thing you know, it blows up because Bugs Bunny had put it like a dynamite stick in it. Something like that, right? Now I totally forgot why I even brought that up, Jay. So
Well, it was something with the book.
yeah, so too often we hold on to not changing, like Daffy Duck did with that diamond. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to change. I don't want to change. I don't want to change.
Holding on to it.
Yeah, so we hold on to something, you know what I mean? And the act of living is to let go, right? I mean, it's so easy to change. If you really think about it, Jay, change is easy. You know, you want to change your hair color? Boom. You want to change your style of music? Boom. You want to change your clothes? Boom, right? If you want to change how much money you make, believe it or not, it's not as complicated as people think it is. It's just a matter of change. The hard part of life, Jay, right, is discovering the things we don't need, that we don't need to be doing anymore, and letting them go. Unlearning is what I call it. The unlearning process, you know what I mean? Habits, things that are holding us back. You know, when you talked about apprehensions, what are you apprehensive about making a video or doing a podcast? Uncovering that and letting it go. And so we have to, you know, uncover, discover, discard, you know, that whole thing.
And that's what you got from writing it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think people are missing out, if anything at all, from not writing their own?
I think, you know, I don't think writing a book is for everybody, but I think writing a journal, I think, you know, a good plug here for Jay's book, go get 30 days of thought and write for 30 days.
Thanks.
Right? Because every day you had me writing and I really hated you for it. I mean, some of those thoughts were not so pleasant, but
Yeah, the reviews are definitely helpful.
like, God damn, Jay, like, what the hell? Why did I gotta talk about this? I thought I'd finish that with my therapist, you know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you, I feel better after this episode. And by the way, thanks for even exploring the 30 days. Because I've got a couple people that have, and they really did
No, it was
get something from it.
Yeah, you once again, you whether you knew it or not, you were helping us uncover. That's what 30 Days of Thought was doing, really. I was like, okay, I got to go through this motion again. You know what I mean? I thought I did it in 2002, but Jay's having me do it again. So, and then what happens is you realize that you uncovered, but guess what? Just like dust, it's settled again.
Wow.
Right? And like 20 years later, I'm like, oh, wow, I got to dust that off again. Because, you know, think about this. I mean, there's universal laws in this world, right? And one is that where there is a vacuum, then it's going to get filled up, right? So if I uncover and discard, well, there's a vacuum created now. Well, if I don't fill that up and just say, okay, I did my job, move on, sooner or later, something's going to fill that up, whether I like it or not. It's just the universal laws.
What do you want the audience to take away from this conversation?
I mean,
maybe you don't want anything. You don't want.
I just wanted to hang out with you, man.
I'm trying to learn as I go here. I'm talking to a Buddhist. You don't ask a Buddhist what they want, right? I mean,
it's not about what we want. I mean,
I don't want to put you in some camp either.
Think about this, Jay.
I don't mean it like that.
Think about this. I know, but think about this. Think about this. You can't even ask the audience what to take out of this conversation because they're going to take what they want out of it anyway. Dude, my book, once again, you know, I'm a songwriter, right? So I would I got comfortable with people talking about how they felt about my song, right? So songwriting, right? I know I'm going down a rabbit hole, but humor me a second. You write a song, your heart is broken, so you write this love song about some girl. Guess what? The band wants to play it now for the next 3 years. You're over the girl. You're over the heartbreak. You moved on to 6 more girls even, right? But you're still playing that freaking song. And every night someone comes and says, oh, I love that song. I'm so sorry you're going through. I'm like, no, I went through that like 80 months ago.
Oh, that's funny.
Right? I'm not there anymore. You know what I mean? I'm just not there. And writing a book was the same thing. Like somebody said to me, oh, well, this, you know, they said this book was the perception from a man's view, not a woman's view. And I was like, yeah, but I'm a man. I identify as a man. I am a man. I was born a man. I'm going to write like a man. But their thing was, it wasn't from the perspective of a woman. Okay, so I can't dictate what your audience takes out of this interview. It has to be open-ended, like whatever they heard out of this, I hope they heard something. I hope they walk away with a nugget. That's my hope. I don't know what else I could say beyond that.